Go.
Awesome. Thank you, Mary. Hello everybody. This is Arie. I'm the coal campaigner at Dogwood Initiative. And today we're going to run through a little webinar for the next hour on comment periods and public consultation. I've titled it with a subtitle, Assessments and Illusions. And we're really going to be focusing around sort of some of the key differences and similarities between the work that our amazing counterparts in the States have in their own public comment periods and consultations in comparison to what we're dealing with here in British Columbia. And I'm applying that to our three major campaigns. So talking about the coal exporting facility at Fraser Surrey Docks, a little bit about Kinder Morgan, and Enbridge, and the public comment periods and consultations that are going to come up in the coming months and years. So to start, this is a little story about a town called Longview, Washington. This is where the proposed Millennium Bulk terminals would be terminating. So they would be exporting 44 million tons of thermal coal from the Powder River Basin through that community. And in classic Power Pass coal style, we've got everybody who's opposed to the coal port wearing red. 1,300 people showed up for this 9-hour public comment period, public hearing in Longview. This was just one of the 3 physical consultation processes that were held. There was one in Pasco, Washington, and one in Spokane as well. But Mary and myself traveled down there to bear witness and to submit testimony on that dangerous project. So folks who were in red outnumbered the folks in blue who were supporting the project by 3 or 4 to 1. And of course, we're the vast majority of attendees of the 1,300 people who showed up for some segment or the whole thing of that 9-hour consultation period. So what they did was when you entered the room, you got a ticket, and they did it lottery style. So essentially folks grabbed a number, and then those would be put up on a screen and then called out randomly. And so folks were able to go up and give their 2-minute testimony once that happened. And they actually extended the comment period, the public hearing, for over an hour to allow everyone who had a ticket to have their say. And so it was interesting at that hearing because you weren't allowed to vocalize your support for a particular stance or comment that was made, but you could hold up a 10 by 10 sign showing what you felt. So we have the no coal exports signs, we can do better, which was the messaging of our side. And the other folks wearing blue shirts in the public comment period were saying, had little signs that said jobs on them. And so there was a 4-person panel that was up on stage, and testifiers would get sort of booted off the stage in a nice way if they went over time. So you had a little green light, yellow light, red light to indicate when your time was up. So I'm going to the next slide. So yeah, they did a rally as well in the interim lunch period. So there was an hour-long intermission between the 1 to 4 p.m. Testimony and the 4 to 10 essentially, or 5 to 10 rather. And so we heard from ranchers from Montana to the Yakima First Nation to 9-year-old school children talking about climate change, and high schoolers engaged in a lawsuit against the federal government for not acting out on climate change. So this is a picture of Brad, who's our friend that we had dinner with. He's a cattle rancher in Montana, whose home and acreage is about 13 miles from Colstrip, which is the alley of power plants in Montana, just about an hour and a half outside of Billings. Our organizer friends at Power Pass Coal hosted carpool meetups, bus convoys. They had a hospitality suite with snacks and decorations made from art builds that they had done with the volunteer community. They had really wonderful materials to hand out, so infographics and sheets, good buttons, stickers, all of that. You know, and they had the flags that they put together as well to indicate support. And in an unrelated note, they also worked with brewers in local communities to put together a no coal porter that they were able to, that the proceeds of which went to one of the local organizing groups on the project. Oops, there we go. Bear with me as I go to my next slide. I'm doing 2 computers right now. So, my assessment, this is a joke from Twin Peaks, just so you know. Agent Dale Cooper, pictured here, always says this is a damn fine cup of coffee, and I would say the Longview assessment was quite the damn fine comment period, if I may say so. So June 15th is the last day of public comment. They had 45 days during the comment period for people to submit comments both online and through mail and through verbal testimony, which was transcribed from those hearings as a written comment. And folks have actually been complaining that that's a really short comment period from their perspective. Past ones have been 60 or more days in a row. And so the Power Pass Coal coalition groups in the states that are working towards this, Sierra Club, for instance, which is a huge NGO in the states, a grassroots group, Columbia River Keeper, the Friends of the Columbia Gorge, Greenpeace, STAND, formerly known as Forest Ethics, the Washington Environmental Council, Washington Conservation Voters, landowner groups, a group of physicians called Physicians for Corporate Responsibility. There were faith groups and many, many others, including One America, who were involved in this. There's approximately 15 paid organizers dedicated to this, not to mention the rest of the staff that have been working tirelessly on this comment period, and to mobilize unprecedented numbers of folks to have their voices heard in this critical moment. And there's also folks in Montana, California, and other folks affected by coal exports who bring people out in droves, either by busing them out in a convoy or flying ranchers out to give testimony and speak at the rallies. So they hosted several comment period workshops, they held webinars, they did organizer trainings that were led in large part by volunteers. They had paid and unpaid canvassers focusing on this event, and most of their communications for at least the last several months was focused around pulling people out to participate in this public hearing. So the decision makers involved on this are the Department of Ecology, which is a state body, and then the county, so Cowlitz County, which would be similar to our regional districts, like City of Burnaby, for instance. And the DEIS, so the Draft Environmental Impact Statement, which folks were commenting on at the Longview hearing. That's what all of these public consultation meetings are all about. Was the product of a scoping period which was conducted in 2013. So, you know, at the same time, our folks in Power Pass Coal were able to extend the invitation out to their supporters and organizers to have their voices heard on this and tell decision makers what kind of information they wanted to know before that assessment was conducted. And so they look at, yeah, like potential impacts around climate, health, all of that kind of stuff, and then formulate this draft environmental impact statement. The DEIS is then subjected to further review and expert comment. And then they put that towards a final environmental impact statement, which is then submitted back to the deciding bodies. And either the approval is issued or the project is denied. And so that's part of the State Environmental Protection Act. They also have a National Environmental Protection Act that was invoked for this coal pour proposal. And so unfortunately, my colleagues haven't been able to give me the final numbers on how many hours, how many phone banks that it took to get that together. But the numbers that I've heard so far is that they've brought out at least 257,000 comments in these 45 days on this comment period. And on a different proposal, they pulled in 280,000. The downsides of their assessment process from their point of view is they're not allowed to consider, like the Department of Ecology can't consider the global impacts of these projects. The public hearings weren't hosted in big cities like Portland, for instance, which is just about half an hour from Longview. And I'm sure there's other issues that they would bring up if I asked them. So let's bring this over to British Columbia. So as you might know, the National Energy Board has opened up a public comment period on Enbridge's request to extend their it's so funny. So essentially they have a permit for now, but it's going to expire at the end of the month unless they can get some buyers for this, some oil people to actually take on the project. So they're asking for a bit more time and requesting a permit extension. And the National Energy Board is opening that up to public input for, about 15 more days. You have to submit it via fax or by snail mail. So I put these memes in. One of these was generated by our wonderful Christina on the left here, the fax. Why don't you just send it out over a dinosaur? And then we've got the lovable Principal Skinner asking himself, am I out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong. And I sort of feel like that's the way, the National Energy Board seems to view the public. And I think our mandate as Dogwood Initiative, we really need to make sure that we amplify the public opposition to these projects in any way that we can. There's still massive opposition, obviously, to Enbridge, even though the resistance isn't as loud as it might have been a couple of years ago. And I really think we need to rally our people around these decision points, regardless of how odd they may seem, and how potentially, not inadequate is the word I'm looking for. And on Kinder Morgan, I don't know if you guys recall this tale, but I know that I stood outside with Mary and Tracy and Kai and Laura and many, many other of our volunteers outside of the National Energy Board hearings on the Kinder Morgan pipeline a few months ago. They have now put together a new, quote-unquote, supplemental review process in which they're going to consider greenhouse gas emissions on the project. I remember how, hundreds of folks turned up at different times to show up at these public hearings, even though we all decided that it was pretty inadequate and most likely a really jokey kind of review process. But people understand the need to participate and to tell a clear narrative and bring out our allies at every turn, because we really do you never know what's going to shut a project down. And so I'm just, I thought I'd indicate our little mobile viewing stand, since we were cut out of the public consultation that was happening inside, where interveners were testifying against the pipeline. We were outside in the rain, making sure that people knew that we were voting no on Kinder Morgan. And so I think that there's kind of a widespread potentiality to think that, you know, these assessment processes are kind of a joke. When we see, you know, the new panel, for instance, on the Kinder Morgan review, having ties to the oil industry and the Kinder Morgan pipeline company. But, you know, there's always critical moments to engage on these things. Believe it or not, no matter how much the process seems to be inadequate, some of the very best opportunities we have to make change and to engage the public is around comment periods, at least in my opinion. You can bring up the media, you can bring real people into real critical moments and make them a part of our movement. And this can really spur on real change. If there's anything I've learned from dealing with public comment periods for the last 3 years on the Fraser Surrey Docks project, so you really never know what is the final nail in a coffin on a project like, you know, Fraser Surrey Docks' coal proposal or the Enbridge Northern Gateway, and we need to fire at all cylinders to protect our communities. And the delay that is brought about by engaging in public comment periods and assessments can be really critical to the outcome of a project decision. So this brings me to Fraser Surrey Docks and the comment period around this, this project. So, you know, we've engaged in several public hearings on this. For one thing, we had, let me see here, essentially Metro Vancouver, which is the regional government, the political body representing 21 municipalities and First Nations that oversees the regional district responsible for several permits. On Fraser Surrey Docks, they're responsible for the liquid waste permit and an air quality permit, both which are critical for Fraser Surrey Docks to begin operations. There's a port permit that's already in place, so the port issued them an approval because, in their words, they don't have to look into what the product is, and they're not responsible for saying no to specific commodities, but rather just make sure that we're facilitating trade coming through the port. We engaged in this public comment period specifically around the permit amendment that was needed once they changed the proposal from a transshipment facility at Texada Island to being a direct coal loading facility on the Fraser River. And our partners at VTAC and Communities in Coal are now in court arguing that the port exercised bias in their approval, that this was a done deal before they actually engaged in the quote-unquote public process, and that they failed to consider climate change. A court date on this is to be announced probably sometime this year, after the port and Fraser Surrey Docks working together tried to get that case thrown out quite recently. And so the one place that the province had to intervene was around a Ministry of Mining permit for the Texada side of the project. This project permit is now moot because they changed that aspect of the proposal. So Texada Island is no longer part of it. And the province could have called for health and environmental impact assessments like everyone, including the nurses union, thousands and thousands of experts and healthcare officials had called for, but the province kept telling us that, nope, that's not our jurisdiction, and so they never acted. So because of widespread and vocal public opposition, Fraser Surrey Docks, the liquid waste application was subjected to, a 30-day public consultation period. We held comment period gatherings where folks met up in coffee shops or houses, using postcards on the street to gather comments from passersby. And we used an online web tool to bring in over 3,400 comments pertaining to the bylaw through our site and through our partner site at realporthearings.com, or .org rather. And so that's 3,400 more comments than any liquid waste permit in the history of Metro Vancouver has ever gotten. And so this was a really critical moment for us all to, bring the public in and allow their voices to be heard when, at the end of the day, folks had been looking for a venue to air their grievances. We were able to offer that, and as a result, we've delayed the project from moving forward by over a year. We're expecting a decision on that permit anytime in the coming weeks. And we've got a plan, but we need your help. So, in order for us to keep our economic branding together, we cannot approve coal terminals and be the greenest region in the world. Local communities, health officials, local governments are all opposed to this ridiculous project that we've been fighting since 2013. And even the Port of Vancouver, who issued the port project permit, thinks that this is a bad idea, according to Robin Sylvester, who's the CEO that I met at his AGM just 2 weeks ago. I've spoken with regional city councilors, and they have assured me they're going to come out against the project again publicly once the decision is issued on liquid waste. And public opposition is still very critical on this project, and we need to express it not only on Fraser Surrey Docks, but I would argue on both the Kinder Morgan and the Enbridge proposals. So Metro Vancouver councillors know that their communities won't stand for increased coal exports, which compromise the health and safety of our community. The timing of this process really depends on how political the permit becomes within Metro Vancouver's regional district, according to their their key staff. And if the permit's issued, we have a plan. We're going to send out an e-blast, so an email blast to all of our supporters in affected communities, asking them to call Metro Vancouver's offices, urging immediate action. The role of the board on this permit specifically has always been an open question, and we're going to be asking them to do whatever it takes to make sure this project never goes forward and to intervene wherever they can. So I could not help but make this meme. So this is Eminem in his 8 Mile moment. We've been referring to the air quality permit as our 8 Mile moment, so the one shot, one opportunity to seize everything we ever wanted, which is to stop the coal port through this one permitting moment. This is where municipalities have a huge say. This is the most political permit that will have been issued or even brought to a public comment period of all of the permits that are happening and needed for Fraser Surrey Docks. Fraser Surrey Docks tried to sue the municipalities through Metro Vancouver because they were given a ticket for polluting the air. So on air quality, they expelled an uncontrolled soybean dust cloud, and they were issued a $1,000 ticket. And so they tried to take the Metro Vancouver, which is the regional government, to court over that, and they chickened out at the last minute. Metro was always arguing that the jurisdiction over air quality is in fact theirs because by all rights the province has delegated that responsibility to them. But Fraser Surrey Docks argues that they don't have jurisdiction over air quality on port lands, and that should be federal jurisdiction. But this would, if they had actually gone through court, this would have set a huge precedent about who has jurisdiction over air quality and the health of our communities. And once Fraser Surrey Docks backed out of the lawsuit, they said that they retained the right to contest air quality regulations in the future. So I would wager that there's going to be a public comment period on this opening up in September, and this is going to be our big moment, our 8 Mile moment, to turn out unprecedented numbers of our supporters who are opposed to the coal project, and make sure that they submit their written comments and attend public meetings in droves, so that politicians have no choice but to deny this project from moving forward. So this is another meme that Christina put together. And these are sort of my final reflections around comment periods in general. So I think engaging in these assessment processes, no matter how flawed, are critical to our success as a movement. I can't say again, or I can't say enough how often, you know, we never know, especially with a project like Fraser Surrey Docks, we've never really known that there was going to be a one-shot strategy to kill the project. So we have to engage on every front. And for instance, the liquid waste permit that we engaged in that delayed the project for over a year wasn't something that had ever been done before, but because of the outcry from local people, they added that process. And so we can make small wins when we engage in these processes. The public needs to have their voices heard, and this is a really critical way to do that by engaging in consultations. We never know, we never know what will kill a project, and I think that we really need to dedicate resources to act on these key moments. As we've seen from our partners at Power Past Coal, when everybody gets involved, you can yield huge results. You know, they were pushing 300,000 comments because they had organizers and staff firing on all cylinders to pull out all the stops and make sure that their voices were the ones that resounded in decision makers' ears. We need to capture these voices online and on the ground, so we need to come up with creative ways to do that. And I say if there isn't a good way for the public to engage, we should put together people's hearings, so a public forum, if the proposed consultation process isn't good enough for us. And my second page of final thoughts. Our team's awesome, and we're in the fight together. And I think that decision makers are going to do the right thing if they hear how much it means to the people who are affected by these processes. And we can force them to listen because of our huge list of supporters and people who share our values. In these public comment periods, I think it's really, really important to get as many expert opinions as we can. And especially bring in folks who are critically affected by these projects. So, for instance, local ranchers like Brad, who lives, just 13 miles away from Colstrip and is impacted by the coal industry every day, like landowners in Delta who see coal dust on their crops. We really need to find those community voices and amplify them and use this as the basis for the comments that we ask our broad supporters to generate. And we have to make sure that those comments are relevant to the bylaw that we're discussing. So we need to make sure that we know exactly what decision makers are asking for and making sure that we understand what's considered relevant to the bylaws. We don't want to be submitting comments that are too emotive and have nothing to do with specifically the impacts, for instance, that a liquid waste or that like hooking the coal system up to the regional sewer system would have on stormwater and things like that in our drainage systems. So it needs to be relevant and it needs to be local. And again, I really think that the delay that we can inflict by engaging in these processes can kill a project, especially when there's shaky economics happening like there is on Fraser Surrey Docks' coal proposal. And I couldn't help but include Samwise Gamgee because I think that he holds the faith that I hold, that even though some of these processes are a little bit out of whack, we can make a difference, and it's worth fighting to make sure that our voices are heard and the voices of our supporters are heard. So, questions and comments and thoughts on this? I'm super happy to open up this comment period webinar to public comment. So you can, I'll unmute folks and allow folks to have questions and thoughts at this moment.
And this is Mary here, just helping facilitate. So folks, I think are welcome to say, hi, this is this person, I have a question, or you can type your question into the chat box and I will bring it up. And if not, I have a couple of questions.
Sweet.
So I'm just going to lead off. One question is, any specific ideas from Longview? Some of the things that we witnessed, like the shirts and the kind of use of passing around the slips of paper to make sure some speakers got to the mic. Any ideas about applying some of those specifics to the Fraser Surrey Docks air quality permit consultation that we hope to get, or the Kinder Morgan additional consultation period? And I know that we don't know the details yet.
Yeah, that's a good question, Mary. So I think, like you say, we don't know what the format is or details of the Kinder Morgan process or the liquid waste permit for Fraser Surrey Docks. So around, so what happened was at Longview, if there were really key voices that we wanted to make sure were heard early on, especially when media was present or, early in the day when there was a lot of people, essentially we would give the tickets to the event organizers and they would distribute them to their key quote unquote grass tops list. It's what they call their main spokespeople who are directly affected, and they would open that up and allow those people to take those tickets so they could speak at the opportune moments. I don't think that we'll have we'll have that sort of same process, at least not on the Fraser Surrey Docks project. But yeah, I think it was really, really powerful to see folks in the same branded t-shirts and in the same color out of solidarity. You would see someone wearing red and you would know that they stood for you, and they would wave these little signs that say no coal exports, we can do better, in support when folks testified. And when I was getting off the stage after testifying in front of, I don't know, 500 at least, everyone was just waving these red flags at me and nodding their support, as they weren't allowed to vocalize their support, but they were able to visually show it. And I think that's like a very critical thing. And that's actually one of the reasons why I thought we should change our dogwood shirts to be the teal blue color. I'm thinking maybe we could all be the blue folk who show up to protect our air and our water, which is sometimes blue.
Awesome. Thanks for answering that, Arie. And I see a question in the chat box from Brenda who asks, how soon can we prepare comments?
Yeah, that's a good question. So on air quality, we know that folks are going to be able to submit comments probably on a similar 30-day comment period. We don't know when that's going to open up, but we know that it has to pertain to the air quality bylaw, which I've read through, but probably besides Metro Vancouver, I'm probably one of the only people who's done that. So you could start formulating a expert comment, specifically if you have some ideas around how coal dust and a new coal port would impact regional air quality. You can start doing that now. But like I say, we still don't know, unfortunately. when this proposal is going to be subject to that review. So it's hard to say. But you can start and just look at the air quality bylaw if you're keen. But otherwise, I'm imagining this is going to happen in September. And I'm not sure if Mary wants to say something around Kinder Morgan or Enbridge, because there is a public comment period on the Enbridge extension, and
Hmm.
that's going to be finalized in June, June 27th.
Yeah, I guess for the Enbridge extension, the best place to go is to the blog that
Mm-hmm.
we have on the Dogwood blog, explaining what's required and how to get that in ASAP. Um, yeah, so I think that's the place to go for that.
Cool.
And then for Kinder Morgan, yeah, because we still don't know the format, or or what's going to be required of speakers. I think it's really difficult. So probably just like having it on our radar, and talking to other folks about having it on their radar might be the best step we can have right now, so that we're not scrambling quite so much, um, when it comes time to show up to a consultation. Um,
Yeah,
I hope that
totally.
answers that question. And can I just clarify one thing with you, Arie, before I read the next question? Um,
Sure. And I was
yeah.
just going to say as well on the, oh, I linked in on my presentation and then I realized I didn't share the slide. So I can link this, the blog into the chat box um, for everybody so that they can take a look at the blog regarding the Enbridge consultation. So folks know what to expect on that.
Cool.
And yeah, next question, please. While I
Um,
type.
yeah, one thing I want to clarify, is there still any chance for public consultation on the liquid waste, or has that ship sailed and we're hoping for public consultation beyond just comments for air quality?
Yeah, so all of the comment on liquid waste has occurred. We don't have another opportunity for that aside from the fact that we're going to have all of our supporters and organizers, as soon as the liquid waste permit is issued, if it's issued, which we expect to happen in the coming weeks, which is why this was such a critical time to do this webinar. Um, I think that we're going to have everybody calling and or emailing Metro Vancouver to voice their opinion. So this is going to be another moment where we can make our voices heard. And I think we want that to be a resounding voice as well.
Cool. Okay, we've got a couple questions coming in. So I might go to Lisa's first. So Lisa's asking, in public consultations or hearings where it seems to be an overtly political process and we don't
Mm-hmm.
want to give the process validity, should we participate? And if so, how do we participate without validating their motive, process, or decisions?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess I can speak from sort of what we've done in the past. For instance, the liquid waste permit. Sorry, I'm just going to open up my guy again here. The liquid waste permit wasn't, they're not necessarily required to invite public comment, and they don't necessarily need to consider it. But it's super critical that people feel that their voices are heard. And I think that volunteers and organizers and the public understand that we need to take every opportunity to vocalize these concerns. And I think we should participate, but you can still participate while calling out a broken process. But when the broken process is all that you have, you can either play into it and do your best to rile up the anger of folks, or you can ignore it and come up with a really good reason why you don't want to do it. But having said that, I really think I know Will told a story earlier today about a critical moment on a campaign on Vancouver Island that was about, he was talking about subdividing some lots, and I'm not sure exactly what the main story was, But at the end of the day, they ended up actually changing the subdivision law and listening to people, even though at the beginning of the process, the decision maker was totally against dogwood. So again, you never know if it's going to have an impact, and if we can, we should be firing, I think, at every opportunity, regardless of if we think it's a broken process or not. I hope that does
Yeah.
that answer the question well, Lisa? Do you want to
Yeah.
have a follow-up? She's sitting beside me, so
Um, and
cool.
I might add to that, area, and just to give a visualization of what you described. I remember people at the Kinder Morgan hearings in Burnaby outside the casino waving signs that called it a sham process or a broken process. So it's a way
Mhm.
of indicating that you care enough to be out there, but you're also, using that space and that time to bring attention to the process itself. Um,
Mhm.
which I think is kind of cool. I'm going to go to
Totally.
the next question from Brenda, who asks,
Can I just
could
add
we?
something?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that whole thing. It's like, yeah, we're here, and I think it's super important to be showing that, and if for nothing else, but for media attention, right? So, like, for the public to understand what's going on a given permit, like, the public doesn't really understand that it's a broken process unless we tell them. But if we're showing out in droves and trying to give our impact in that way, and we get some good media coverage, that can be really critical in terms of changing the public debate.
Awesome.
And now we, cool, thank you.
Brenda asks, could we prepare a bulletin now about the air permit to inform, explain how to comment, etc.?
I think that's a great idea. I would love to do that. Um, yeah, like we can definitely put something together. We won't necessarily know exactly what we're commenting on until, and we won't know what the format is until it's decided upon, which is really unfortunate, but that's just the way it goes. But we could come up with some kind of a handbill saying like permitting process coming. Like I could imagine something similar to the posters we made on the public service announcement Saturday we did, where it said coal port coming, health hazards, climate hazards, and economic hazards, and then saying like it's gonna be posted at Metro Vancouver, and Dogwood's gonna email you. So sign the petition today to like make sure you get that info. Um, like I mean, and also we could probably distill what the air quality bylaw is, because we do know that it's going to be, the comments need to be based around that bylaw. So we could do something. I think we could come up with like at least something that folks have while they're canvassing to talk more about that with the public as we
Mm.
engage.
And Arie, just to build off that, it occurs to me that if it's a really short period, it would be especially beneficial to start reaching out to people that could provide some of that expert testimony. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking of a professor that I met that was doing citizen research on air quality around the port. Um, just those folks that might not be in our communications network right now, but that would be real assets during a consultation period. Um,
Nice.
and just to start building out like a list, that might
Totally.
be pretty cool. Um,
Yeah, that would be great. I have sowed the seeds around that for air quality with the BC Health Coalition. And I've got Adam Linsford finding folks who are going to be able to give us public testimony or expert testimony on the health impact associated with coal, which will be pertinent to air quality. And yeah, Mary, I know you gave me that person's info, so I think I should do another follow up. And then, yeah, like maybe we should put together a spreadsheet of folks that we know or people that we can contact who we think would have something expert to say around this. And
Sweet.
also, yeah, this is gonna be a
Uh,
fun project, you guys. I think we make it fun with these soup Nazi memes, etc. Things like that.
this is like a real organizer type question that I've got for you. Just curious. You might not be able to speak to it all right now. What what roles do you think people need to take on to really, in a hurry, get ready for a consultation period? Because you mentioned how many staff were working on the Longview consultation
Mhm. Mhm.
process, and then here, you're the staff on deck for a coal campaigner, so it makes sense
Mhm.
for other staff and volunteers to probably take on some roles. I'm just wondering if there are any that like need to be filled.
Totally. So what we're gonna need, I think it would be awesome to do have like a letters to the editor kind of group that's already sort of prepped up and ready to deploy so that we can pitch stories to local media um, like as soon as the comment period is issued, essentially. So someone who can turn around a letter to the editor in a few days to get that message out there. We need interesting social shares to get that on the social media, so on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, um, funny memes that are like more relevant to the cultural world than what I come up with, which are always 90s based.
Mhm.
um, we need folks on the ground, of course, who are prepared to discuss the air quality permit and what people need to say. So we'll want to have some like handbills with bullet point updates on specifically what the comment needs to refer to regarding that bylaw, regarding the air quality bylaw. And we'll need postcards or something like that to have that all together. And yeah, like during the public comment period, we're going to need people ready to share on social media as well. So we need like a social media application network. And we might need phone bankers too to call supporters if they haven't taken action at that moment to mobilize other supporters to make sure that they get their comments in on time on air quality. Mary, is there anything else you could think of that was just me rattling off the top of my head?
I
So,
love it. I realize I might not have caught it. Um, I think all of those that you just mentioned were around getting comments in. Are you also hoping or expecting something like a hearing, like a physical space and time for people to speak?
yeah, and I totally glossed over it because we haven't had to do that in a really long time. But on air quality, we know that Metro Vancouver is going to request of Fraser Surrey Docks to put together a public hearing. So it's going to be, by Fraser Surrey Docks. So we have to take that with a grain of salt. They might be hosting it in some like dark back room that fits 20 people um, in their offices in Surrey or something like that. So we need to be aware of what that looks like as soon as we can. And like, I mean, I'm going to be digging as much as I can, but we want people to pack the rooms, especially if it's something like that, because we want to pack the room and be like, you weren't able to host all the people. And if you actually want to consult the people, we need bigger spaces. And I have the vision of putting together a people's hearing on it if it's not if I don't think it's sufficient enough. And quite frankly, I probably won't think it is because it's Fraser Surrey Docks putting it together. So we're going to want people showing up in, we'll plan a uniform, like everyone wear a blue shirt or whatever it is. Um, and let's turn out in droves. Bring your friends, bring your kids, bring your dad, bring all the people, and be ready to speak from the heart. And we should do it would be fun to do some like at least webinars, if not public narrative training for folks to give expert testimony and to speak about why they're concerned about air quality in the region because of Fraser Surrey Docks.
Yahoo!
Mm-hmm. It'll be fun.
Any other comments from folks? I've got my eye on the chat box. Uh, This is one silly technical question, Arie. For Fraser Surrey Docks, I was looking at the location of it. Is the in and out route north of Richmond or south of Richmond? Do you know?
Oh.
Like the branch of the water?
It would be north of Richmond, I'm pretty sure.
Like
Let me
along
just
Vancouver?
Because it's on the Fraser River. That's a good question. Let's open it up in Google Maps and I'll show you guys.
Yeah, because I'm just
Let's
thinking
hear
about turning out people along the route in particular. Yeah.
it. That's cool. So here we are, Fraser Surrey Docks. Oops.
Mhm.
Bear with me. I hope I don't nauseate anyone by this
Oh,
zooming.
Brenda looks like she just filled it in. She says south of Richmond, which makes sense to me based on the size of that arm of the water. But we'll zoom out
Oh
and take a
yeah.
look.
Yeah, no, that's right. Sorry, that was me being geographically biased.
Hmm.
Thinking about Tawasin. I don't know why I was thinking about Tawasin. Anyway, yes, it is south of Richmond, but as you can see, the way that the river sort of flows, it's kind of in line with Richmond, but it is right across the water from New West, on the border of Surrey and Delta here. And it passes through super important bird habitat as it goes out the river. It goes past Westham Island, which is critical farmland where we get the most amazing strawberries and raspberries. I was eating some of those last week in Delta, and they're like the most, I don't know, sweet and delicious um, fruits that I know of. And it'd be a shame to have them covered in coal dust as coal ships pass. And it passes as well the Steveston community, which is quite a historic and lovely waterfront community that would be adversely impacted by this project.
Thanks for answering that and showing that on the map.
Mm-hmm. No problem. I'm sorry for getting my geography backwards.
It's okay. It's
Thank
super clear now. Okay,
Cool.
it looks like those are our main questions. Arie, thank you so much for sharing your insight and taking the time to prepare all of this. Any final comments?
Yeah, just I'm glad that I was able to do that, and I hope it was useful for folks. And I'm happy to let people, maybe if everyone's okay to unmute, we can have a final round maybe, and folks can say what's on their mind.
Hmm.
Aries, Brenda, I feel like I'm ready to go since I participated in the liquid waste permit submission. One
Mhm.
question I have is, who do we submit to? Is it going to be the port again?
No, it'll be to Metro Vancouver. So the regional government, the GVRD. Last time we did big email blasts into Metro, and we did a delivery to Metro Vancouver's offices, where I carried in all of those Grumpy Cat postcards and handed them over,
Okay.
which can be another good moment for media if we want. Phyllis, do you have a final thought for us?
Well, going down the Fraser River is definitely going to impact all the farms and market farms along Richmond side, along that whole side. There's all farm markets along there, and as well as in Ladner. And then you pair that along with the proposed LNG that's going to be going up at least one big tanker a day. It's a compounding problem. So it's not just the coal dust, it's going to be all the emissions from the ships that are going through.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's a good point, Phyllis. Thank you. Scott, do you have something for us? Sorry, Scott, I can't hear you. Can folks hear Scott?
No.
Do you have are you connected to audio? It looks like you are, Scott. You might have muted yourself or not have a microphone.
Free.
Maybe I can get you to type your response if that's okay, Scott, and then we can read it out. Cool, thank you. Sorry about that, my friend. And Mary, if you want to do your final thought, and then we can read Scott's out.
I'm just more like riled up for this process now. Yeah.
Arie, I've got a thought.
Sure.
Can I add something? I just realized that because I'm a registered nurse, I'm quite familiar with the impact of particulate matter in breathing. And what I wonder if we can get connected to schools or something, because when I think of all the young people that live, like Surrey's highly populated, right? Isn't it the biggest community? And when I think they have the most kids, I wonder if we could link somehow with schools, because that would be a really powerful impact. Because young people's tissue grows at a faster rate, so the health risks are much greater for them.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I definitely want to highlight that you are in fact an expert in such things as a registered nurse and a oncology researcher. So yeah, I think reaching out to schools and especially talking to kids and parents about, associated risks, right? Like there's increase of heart disease, increase of respiratory diseases and respiratory issues, all kinds of problems associated with coal dust, and anything we can do to make sure that project doesn't go through by using expert voices would be fantastic. And yeah, I think that would be a great thing to work together on. And I'm excited that everybody's excited about this because I've been thinking about it for years. And yeah, Scott, if you've got something you can type in the chat box. Sorry about your sound, my friend. Oh.
Okay, not seeing anything, so maybe we'll call this a wrap.
Cool.
I've been recording, so I'll make sure that we talk about how to distribute it after for folks that want it, or perhaps on the organizer hub. Yeah.
Great. And Scott, if you want to ask any questions or give me any feedback, we can have a call, or you can text me, or whatever works for you. I can give you a call right now, actually, if that's good, and we'll do a little debrief. Cool.
Thanks, Arie.
Well, everybody for indulging me. I'm excited. Thanks for being part of my my team. I sometimes think of us as the Fellowship of the Ring, carrying the ring to Mordor, to destroy it, like the coal industry, eventually.
All right,
guys. Thank you.